I lost her. I'd like to call this council meeting to order. First off, I need to let you know that Alderman Kelly is out of town on business and will not be here tonight. And Alderman Vapurzian is out of town for a memorial service, so he will also not be here tonight. So we will be down to 6 council members. First order of business is the invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I've asked City Clerk Clausen to lead us in that.
Dear Heavenly Father, we bow our heads before Thee this evening, grateful for the blessings that we have in our lives. We're grateful to live in this wonderful community, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to do the business of this great city. Tonight, we pray that Thy Spirit will lead and guide us as we make decisions for the city. Father, at this time we acknowledge that there is a lot of unrest and hurt going on in our country, and we pray for all those who are involved in that. We pray for those who have lost family members. We pray that that would be with them in their time of need. We pray that that would bless the communities that have been affected. We pray that that would bless those all over the world who are scared and hurt and afraid at this time. We pray, Heavenly Father, especially for those who protect our communities, who protect the freedoms we enjoy, that that would be with them, that that would watch over and protect them. And we ask for these things and acknowledge Thy hand in all things, and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the next order of business is under special guests and announcements, and we have a check presentation tonight by the Lions Club to the Maumelle Police and Fire Department. And so Chief Williams is here and Chief Ezel is here, and Officer Pruitt I see is in the audience out there. So if they would all come up front, and then the Lions Club, if y'all would come up and make your presentation. And John, introduce yourself if you would, and your Lions Club members.
I'm John Allen. I'm president of the Maumelle Lions Club for the past year. Birch Johnson is the current president of the club. Mike Mathewitz, our treasurer. We have members Fred Payton, David DeKay, Doug Ladner, who I'm sure you all know. And you'll remember, members of the council, that we had a fish fry, which is our largest fundraiser of the year, in June. The theme was recognizing our first responders, and the club had pledged all of the revenue after expenses would be donated to the police and fire departments of Maumelle in recognition of their service to the community. So tonight we have that check. I have several presentations to make, but there's a total of $9,470.72 that we are going to present to you, Mr. Mayor, on behalf of the city. As the what's the best way to do this?
Let's turn around and face the audience, I guess, and get everybody up here behind the check.
So,
Chief, y'all know y'all.
Oh, we got our own?
we had hoped. Chief.
Y'all get in together. Squeeze in. Squeeze
It's
in.
got to go in general. It's got to go into general fund. A check.
Thank you very much. That is very generous of the
We have something else for you.
It's like you're not here, dude.
We would like you, if you would, we had a reading of our appreciation of first responders. Community citizens signed it, and we're not going to enroll it or read it, but we would like you to give this to Chief Ezel.
Okay.
It's going to rotate between police and fire, but the fire personnel won the bag toss, so they didn't.
They cheated.
We're not sore losers, but they cheated.
You want to read it?
See if I get a picture of it. I think you need to read it, because that's what, can you get a picture these guys are all about?
It's like a meeting.
Okay, we see you patrolling our neighborhoods, saving a burning home or business, responding to a medical emergency in the middle of the night. We see you performing your duties in the scorching heat and the pouring rain. We see your patience as you handle difficult situations. We see your pain as you mourn the passing of brothers and sisters who have died in the line of duty. We see you as someone with a calling to serve. We see your dedication, and we want you to know we appreciate it. Thank you. One final thing, Mr. Mayor, there are some sponsors who had put restrictions on the use of their donations for example, basketball court or for equipment and training. Those are spelled out in a memo to you from the Lions Club. And it's also our expectation that the total amount will be divided evenly between the police and fire departments as the fiduciary for the two departments.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We sure appreciate what you do.
Thank you all very much.
Chief. Hey, Chief Ezell.
Thank you, Chief.
How cool is that?
Could I just say one thing before we leave? Well, two things, now that you let me speak. The first thing is, oh, okay. I'm on the 3-minute egg beater time limit. This is just another example, and the people who have seen my Facebook posts, I hope have seen it. This is just another example of how in tough times all over this country, the community of Maumelle has rallied around its police and fire departments and shown their support to the point where it's just, it's amazing. Like I said in my post, there's no words to explain how much that means to us at a difficult time and how much this community means to us and that the way they demonstrate that they appreciate us. Not every department is experiencing that, and not every city is experiencing what we are. And it's just amazing. It's something to behold. And the only other thing I wanted to say is they alluded to it. We are going to use our share of the money and some of the fire department's money because Ezell's promised. And if he hadn't, he just did. To build a basketball court right outside of the police department so we can share it with the folks that live in that area in the apartments there and have something to do. And this is another one of those situations where I really wish I had come up with this idea, but I didn't. Officer Pruitt came to me and brought this to my attention and said he felt like it was a good way to extend our community outreach and to have some time with police officers and young people in that area playing together, getting to know each other and know about each other in just another way that we can share time together. And I thought it was an amazing idea. And thanks to you guys, that amazing idea is going to happen. And thank y'all so very much. And thank all of y'all so much. Thank you.
Again, thank you to the Lions Club, and to echo Chief Williams' sentiments there, we really appreciate it. And he's already been on Public Works. When can you start? He knew he was going to get a check tonight, so he's been on them. So
I appreciate you donating all the time and effort and machinery. Oh yeah, you might not say that again.
I think you asked Public Works for that, though. I do. They told me that.
They'll listen to you.
Yeah.
They'll listen to you.
The next item is the approval of the minutes of the July 5th regular meeting. All the council members have a copy of those minutes in their packets. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I'll offer a motion for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the July 5th regular meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is public comment. And I have two public comment cards, and neither one of them are on the agenda as such. And so at this time, we'll hear from Mr. Jim Marino. If you would, state your name and address for the record, please.
Is it on? Well, Jim Marino, number 8, Christie Lane. When I got here 3 years ago, the council and the city was discussing annexing property over to I-40 and then north as far as we can go. And I haven't heard anything since. And having experience with other cities, I know for a fact that if you don't annex around your city, the city gets surrounded, and it really hurts the city in the long run. And I was hoping I can convince the city council to kind of look into that again, because I haven't heard anything in 3 years.
Well, we already are to I-40 in parts of Morgan. Is that where you're referring to?
Can I show you on the map?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ideally, I don't know if anybody can see, but if it were me and I had my choice, I would annex everything from here all the way up to the county line, if possible. Now, I know that's dreamland, but the more you do, especially around the railroad, if you're looking forward into having a tax base, if you can get that railroad inside the city limits, both sides, I think that would help industry with the railroad there. And when I first came here 3 years ago, that was being discussed.
Well, and it is still being discussed, but it's utilities that's getting to that area is the issue. So trying to provide utilities to that area and the cost to provide them.
Yeah.
So
I was just hoping that maybe I could add a log to the fire.
okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Moreno. The other comment card I have is from Mr. Bo Peterson.
Bo Peterson, 109 Harmony Loop here in Maumelle. I had no idea that the appreciation was going to be shown by the Lions Club to the police department tonight, but I was here to kind of echo, and I don't have a $5,000 check. I've worked in federal and state law enforcement for over 35 years. I've had the pleasure of knowing Chief Williams professionally and socially the past 15 years. I know a lot of the members of his department, and I would just like to say, in all that I have seen in my 35 years, if it's not the best, it's one of the best departments, not only in the state, but in the country. And I just pray for all of them and all of our law enforcement personnel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Next item is the financial statement review, and everybody should have a copy of the financials. They were emailed out Friday afternoon. They weren't in the original packet.
That's fine.
And Ms. Thompson is out of town, so Mr. Clausen is going to present the financials.
All right, the city attorney told me that I went too slow last time, so I'm going to try to speed this up because I think we're all getting a little bit familiar at looking at this presentation, and for the most part, it has stayed pretty consistent. As you can see here in our first slide, our fund balances are all still very healthy. Sanitation fund is a little over $602,000 more than projected ending fund balance for 16. Street fund, a little over $1 million more than projected ending balance for 16, and the general fund is $1.2 million more than the projected ending balance for 2016. And we're currently more than $3.4 million over our 438 Ordinance 438 requirements. This is our revenue sources. County sales tax is a little over $3,000 less than last year at this time. However, the city sales tax is over $185,000 more than last year, and county millage is $67,000 more than last year at this time. So those numbers look really good. Our state turnback revenue is a little over $7,000 less than last year. County millage is $33,000 less than last year. However, our street aid program is a little over $6,000 over where it was last year at this time. We've collected, this is our sanitation fees, we've collected a total of $40,288.29 in fees that were sent to the county, and we have a remaining balance there of $83,261.10. This is the general fund expenses. At this time, we are $313,598 less in expenditures than what we've budgeted for. However, we have spent $642,000 more than we spent last time at this year. And of course, just like we pointed out last month, those major increases were in the police and fire departments and the city services. I'm not sure that this graph has changed significantly since you saw it the first time, but that's holding true. We should be right at about 50%. You can see that we're getting close to that, so we're holding pretty true to budget for the year. In our street fund expenditures, we are a little bit less in personnel, and the mayor and I were looking at this a little bit this afternoon. What that really is it looks like we've spent less in overtime this year than we had at this time last year. But in our other operating expenditures, we're close to $40,000 less than where we were last year. This one is sanitation. Other operating expenses are down $205 due from last year due to that purchase of a garbage truck. And that's it, unless somebody has specific questions.
Okay. Are there any questions on the financials?
I move that we accept them.
Second.
A motion and a second that would council adopt the financials as submitted for June. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is a procedural motion. I need a motion from the floor to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only tonight. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Who made the motion? Was that
Who made the
Alderman
motion?
Holt?
I do.
Okay,
Alderman Hope, okay.
just making sure.
If there's not any discussion, all those in favor of the procedural motion, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. There's no unfinished business. The first item under new business is Civil Service Commission appointment. And at the last meeting, we had told y'all that we hadn't received any applicants. And right after that, Mr. Ray Swankhart then contacted Clerk Clausen and then sent his email in. And so we do have an application now for the Civil Service Commission. It is just one, but that's better than we had last month, I promise you. So we appreciate Mr. Swankhart stepping up and submitting his name for this position. So he's here in the audience tonight. You have a copy of his resume. So, Mr. Swankhart, if you want to come up and I think everybody knows you, but just kind of in your own words tell, because I know you've done this before. So in your own words, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Ray Swankhart. I live at 132 Ridgeland. I've been in Maumelle since 1998, or actually 1999. Left for a little bit, came back, so I've been here a long time. Y'all see me around. I've started coming to the council meetings and getting more and more involved. And I actually thought the position was filled, so I hadn't put in for it. So this last time, so that's why I wanted to put in. I feel like it's something, that's hopefully you don't have to do a lot with it, because if you're doing a lot with it, then probably bad things are happening. It's, you really don't have to do that. Hopefully the chief is handling everything on both sides. And so I just feel like it's something I thought about it, discussed it with my family, and decided I would put my name in the hat and see if y'all want me to do it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any questions of Mr. Swankhart from the council?
Motion we approve Mr. Swankhart to the Civil Service Commission.
Second that motion.
Have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Swankart to the Civil Service Commission. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Welcome
Thank
aboard, Mr. Swankart. Okay, no, I know that, yeah, but we need to arrange for that at their next meeting. Okay, all right. All right, the next item is Resolution 2016-21, resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only, please.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, Resolution number 2016-21, resolution authorizing the mayor of the City of Maumelle to execute an interlocal agreement between the City of Maumelle, the City of Little Rock, the City of North Little Rock, the City of Sherwood, and the County of Pulaski for the purpose of continuing a public transit system within the boundaries of Pulaski County.
Part of this is because Rock Region Metro is now the operating authority, which was formerly Central Arkansas Transit. So they're trying to clean up some things in their local agreement, and I think they also went through and made some modifications to some of the other items. And so this agreement is going before all the cities that were mentioned and the county. And they've dealt, actually Mr. Schwer, who is one of their attorneys, has been dealing with Mr. Norris on this issue. So if there's any questions, I may defer to Mr. Norris. So, Alderman Mosley?
It seems like we do something like this every year.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
No.
Okay.
We do interlocal agreements for various things on a pretty regular basis, but we haven't done one of these in a long time, if I remember. Yeah.
We haven't done one in a little while. I believe they were here. They were here for another reason not long ago.
Do you anticipate the cost of our share going up as a result of whatever we're doing?
Well, the cost will not go up based on this. The cost would only go up if we change the miles of service that they provide for us. So, for instance, right now there's 5 buses that run out here on a daily basis. There's 2 in the morning, 3 in the afternoons. And if you said, well, we want 2 more routes in the middle of the day, we would have to pick up our share of that miles. So it's based on the miles. Or if you said, we want a different route inside Maumelle, we pay for that portion. But the problem is it travels through the city of it travels for the city of Little Rock, the city of North Little Rock, the city of Maumelle, and the county to make that route. So it would take all 4 of those entities agreeing that they wanted to absorb additional cost in order to improve the number of trips, frequency, or if it was just a change in Maumelle, if we just said we want you to do this loop now instead of some other loop, we would pay that difference because it's the miles traveled within your city that you pay for. Right. So it's kind of a strange formula, and that's why they were before us back in the spring asking for a tax increase, basically for us to support that, because it makes it really hard for them to change a route. Because if it increases funding, then it takes 3 cities and a county to say, yeah, we're willing to pick up our share of that.
All right. Thank you very much.
And if I may, this agreement is largely just to change from it changed the name. So if you look at the changes between this agreement and past, the bulk of the changes are changing the name. Also, in the last agreement had Jacksonville and Camac Village as parties to this agreement. They're no longer parties. But by and large, it's mostly just changing the name in the agreement.
And not commit to any funds. There's no funding commitment in here. I mean, that's a different agreement that we have with them.
And the city does keep its one representative on the board.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Alderman Saunders.
Thank you, Mayor. What would be the result if we did not approve this?
Well, we probably wouldn't be part of the system, and we'd lose our member on the board and that sort of thing.
Okay. I would respectfully request some information, probably from the new owners, maybe from the old owners. I'd like to know about how many people are riding these buses per day.
There's no new owners and old owners. They've
Well,
just changed their name.
Well,
Yeah,
okay,
okay,
change
all
the
right.
name. I'd like to know how many people are riding these buses per day, per trip, per week, however they want to categorize it. We had this discussion, I think only Alderman Anderson and I were here at that time for the contract, but at that time, it seems to me, we weren't servicing very many people. We're talking a handful of people, and I'm wondering if that's changed.
Well, I mean, I can get that information for you, we got it at budget time is when we got it one year, is when that was requested, and it was provided at that time.
But it may have changed since then.
And it very well could have changed, but, and here's the problem with just basing it on ridership. What you got to worry about is they're providing a service to people that are underserved or people that can't afford a car and things like that. So you can't just look at it that, well, we're not, if you try to say, well, this costs us so much per person, what's that person going to do if that bus service is not there? Are they going to have to then have a cab come out and pick them up, and then it's probably going to be cost prohibitive for them to either live in Maumelle or for them to have a job that's outside of Maumelle. So it's one of those things. So I think that before we base it just on the number of riders versus the cost, I think you got to look at who is serving it and who you're going to impact by canceling that service. So,
and I believe I heard that same discussion the last time when we discussed this. Now, sometimes it's easier to understand a point if a person jumps to the extreme, which I'm going to do. If we, for example, only had one person per day using any bus, then I would hold it would be cheaper for us to rent them a taxi cab. So that's where the numbers do become important. I'm not trying to segregate out any particular economic group or whatever. But I would like to see some numbers so we can make that comparison.
Okay. All right.
And we might figure out better ways to service them. I don't know.
Well, I see people on a regular basis getting on and off that bus. So, but the number, I can't tell you what that is. I'll have to get that information.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Holt.
Alderman Sanders beat me to my question, Mr. Mayor. It's just because I don't know anything about it. I would go a little bit further in relation to what he said in that is there only one size bus fits all? And if they had something scaled down smaller, would it have any advantage, any difference? Like our buses here that we use in our senior citizen center where 25 people ride it or something, whatever. Would it help any at all if there was something like that available?
I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Oh.
They do have different size buses now, but they're usually used for Paralinks, as I understand it. But there's not. The bus that's out there is typically going to be the standard size bus.
It doesn't affect cost then one way or the other.
They're charging us per mile.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
They don't have a different charge rate.
Yeah, they don't have a different charge rate for sizes of buses because most of their buses are a similar size. Now, they just bought a bunch of CNG buses that they've just put on the street in the last year.
I'd hate to see us lose it. I like the idea. I just didn't know anything about it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Alderman Lewis?
I can't quote it verbatim, but I do remember getting those statistics within the last 2 to 3 budget cycles. Statistically, it was quite appropriate. I see, it's not a lot, but like you said, it's folks that otherwise may not have any transportation service. And, I do see employees, I've seen some at Kroger that ride the bus. You see them coming down the boulevard, sometimes from a stop. I believe I have the data that I need at this time. I'm going to go ahead and offer a motion for approval of Resolution 2016-21.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2016-21. Is there a discussion on that? Alderman Saunders?
Is there any reason we have to do this tonight, or can we wait until we get some numbers?
I'm going to turn to Mr. Norris on that.
No. there's no reason it must be done tonight.
Then I would like to see us defer this until the next meeting, until we can get some information.
Is that a motion?
In form of a
We have a
motion,
motion.
yes.
Okay, I don't hear a second, or did I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to defer this until the next meeting to get ridership information, if I understood the motion correctly. Is there any discussion on that motion to defer? Yes, sir, you have to come to the, yes, no, you got to come up here if you're going to speak. Come up here and then speak. State your name and address for the record, please.
Jim Marino, number 8, Christie Lane. I rode the bus a couple of times between here and there, and about a year ago. And both ways, the bus was pretty full, but it was mainly students going to one of the Christian schools in Little Rock. Filled up about half the bus when I was riding it. I took it in just because I hate to drive. So if that'll help you out at all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion and a second to defer this till the next meeting to get some ridership information. If there's no more discussion, all those in favor of that, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no.
No.
I think I had 4 noes and 2 yeses. Okay, that fails for lack of a, that fails. And I have a motion on the floor to approve Resolution 2016-21. Is there any more discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor of approving Resolution 2016-21 signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
So I had 5-1. Okay, so motion passes. I will still get the ridership information, Alderman Saunders, because it still is information we need, though, I think.
It's good information.
It's good information, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Next item is the first reading. First reading of ordinance number 909, Team Summit LLC to do business with the city. Alderman Timmons.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to abstain from any voting or discussion on ordinance 909.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, if we could have the first reading.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 909, an ordinance permitting Alderman Timmons to conduct business with the City of Maumelle, Arkansas, and prescribing the extent of this authority.
Okay, we had listed here on the agenda that a second, third reading and emergency clause would be requested at this meeting. It takes 6 votes in order to move forward with a second and third reading, and so with 2 aldermen absent and an alderman abstaining or recusing themselves on this item, that vote cannot take place. So there's not even any point to go forward with that. So this item is on first reading, but it is open for discussion if anybody would like to discuss it. Alderman Mosley?
Yeah. I'm going to be a no vote on this when it does come up for vote. And this is nothing personal with Alderman Timmons. I just believe very firmly in conflict of interests and trying to avoid it whenever possible. I can remember back in the probably about 10 years ago, we actually had an alderman and possibly 2 that were doing business with the city, and there was just this constant undercurrent among the residents worried about what's the word, self-serving and that sort of thing. And so I really don't think it's a good thing to do, and I would encourage you to actually to give up your contract. But I will be a no vote, and I just wanted to make that clear tonight and state why. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Mosley. Alderman Holt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In lieu of what Alderman Mosley just said, this part of it just occurred to me that in the event that we didn't pass it, what effect does that have for Alderman Timmons? And again, I duplicate what he said. I'm talking about procedure and has nothing to do with my friend Timmons. So I want to make that clear. What happens in the event that this were to fail? Just out of sheer curiosity.
If it were to fail, I would recommend that the city terminate the agreement with Park on the River. It would be up to Alderman Timmons to make that decision whether she'd rather remain as alderman or continue.
Again, well, my question then was that trying to understand, yes, I brought my book with me, all 18,000 pages of it, but clarifying what it said in here about that it can be, as it says in here, that we can approve her doing business with the city for so long as we clarify exactly what the extent is that she can do business. So, in other words, anything having to do with that particular subject, she would recuse herself, but have we put it into writing as to exactly what her limitations are? Does this clarify it sufficiently for one and all to understand so that we don't have, as I recall years ago on another council, that it was quite an issue. So if I've made that clear, that's my question.
Go ahead.
The way I drafted this was that the city council was authorizing Team Summit to receive profits from its lease agreement of Park on the River. So it's limited to that specific arrangement. If Alderman Timmons were to, say, seek employment with the city or some other contract, that would have to come before the council, again, for that specific agreement or exchange of services. So I think that this limits it to just the current agreement. It's not an agreement that any time Alderman Timmons wants to do business with the city, y'all have already approved it. That is not the case. So it'll be on a case-by-case basis. Does that answer your question, Alderman Holt?
I think so. Yes, I'll reserve further comments until some other time. I don't think tonight is necessary, but thank you for your time.
Yeah, it specifically says, it says two things. It shall be permitted to lease from the city of Maumelle the house located within the city park, known as Park on the River, pursuant to a valid lease agreement. And then it says Team Summit shall be permitted to receive profits from the use of the Park on the River, pursuant to a valid lease agreement. That's the only two things that are allowed per this ordinance. And this is slightly different than the other businesses that had been approved by the council or the board of directors to do business with people, in the sense that normally we're buying a service from somebody. In this case, we're leasing a property to somebody, so the funds are coming the opposite direction. The funds are coming into the city. So I don't know if that makes any difference to anybody. You're still doing a business with somebody. You still have a contractual relationship, but the money is flowing the opposite way of what it had in the past, is all I want to say on that. Alderman Lewis?
This is, there were things with this state law that seem very standard, if you will, on the section where it says no alderman, council member, official, or municipal employee shall be interested directly or indirectly in the profits of any contract for furnishing supplies, equipment, services, so on and so forth. And then there's this part in here, and you always wonder what was going on at the state legislature when they might have added something, or if this was part of the original language. It says, unless the governing body of the city has enacted an ordinance specifically permitting aldermen, council members, officials, municipal employees to conduct business with the city and prescribing the extent of this authority. That term "has enacted" kind of weighs heavy on me, and I sort of had to get out the grammar books and sort of figure out the tense of that. But I suppose the question that I'm compelled to now is for Mr. City Attorney. Have you found examples where other municipalities have done this, and what method did they do, or what was their prescribed way of how they dealt with this?
Well, we've done it before. There's several ordinances that the city clerk was able to locate. Typically, it is just an ordinance for a particular agreement. So the ones we've had in the past, one was for some sort of phone service or cable service. Another was an attorney who was general counsel for a company that did business with the city. Title company.
Okay. Was that during the new form of government on that example?
Yes.
Okay.
Both of those.
Yes, I knew Plant was, yes.
There are some cities who have passed a generic ordinance that says that anyone can do, yes, city council members, aldermen, officials, municipal employees can do business with the city. Period. Closed. It's in the book. And so, therefore, they use that every time. Some of the auditors have been cracking down on that, saying that they want not only a specific person named in the ordinance, but also how far that goes. In this case, the ordinance is limited to just the lease of the park on the river and leasing that out. It's not carte blanche authority for someone to do business.
Okay.
So we're taking the safest approach that's out there. Some cities have taken a more generic approach.
Mm-hmm. So that's good that you provided those examples. I guess the other question is, and so there's precedence that seems to be in place for some of these things. Now, some of them fit a little bit differently. If you're talking about somebody who works for a large corporation, legal counsel, okay. The other thing that sort of weighed on me as I read that language is, could this be considered an ex post facto law?
So if you're referring to the tense of the city has enacted an ordinance, is that what you're referring to?
Well, it's any time that you create a law after the fact to address something.
But so what the ordinance is designed to do, which is why I requested the waiving of the second and third readings in the emergency clause, is traditionally you would have the alderman already sitting in the alderman seat and then seeking to do business with the city, and then an ordinance coming up, and it would sort of be addressed in that timeline. In some situations, it can actually work differently. Say there was an election and someone was appointed and they were already doing business with the city. This ordinance isn't designed to affect the time period from when Alderman Timmons was appointed until it was passed. It's designed to go forward from the day it was passed, which is why I requested that it be done sooner rather than later, so that we're
less votes are impacted.
Exactly.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I guess the other question is, was there any consideration to having this ordinance on, available on the night of appointment in the instance where it would have been necessary? Because now it seems, it seems a little after the fact, and now we don't have the proper quorum here this evening to consider it on the suspension of rules. Should that have been something that might, in hindsight, having been better if it had been available the night of?
In hindsight, it probably would have been better. I was aware that an ordinance would need to be drafted if Alderman Timmons was appointed. Never crossed my mind to have it pre-drafted in the event that she was the one appointed, and then so maybe in hindsight it would have been better to just have it prepared.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Anderson?
So this ordinance is to help us to be compliant with the with state law, correct?
Yes.
Because we already had an agreement, the city had an agreement with Summit LLC, correct?
Yes.
So this is to change it to where that we're naming Alderman Timmons in compliance, or why, or is it because we're up for renewal?
No, we're not up for renewal. It was just renewed not long ago.
Seemed like we just
at the
did
end of 2015.
Last year.
So I guess my question is what triggered this was because that we need to be in compliance with state law because we appointed Alderman Timmons.
Correct.
Okay. And so there's no other change except for
This ordinance is not changing the current agreement.
okay. That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. Alderman Moses.
I'd like to follow up with Alderman Lewis's questions there. I had the same questions this afternoon, and I've actually talked with our city attorney about them too. But I did talk with Mark Hayes with Municipal League this afternoon and asked him those exact questions. I asked if we had broken the law by appointing somebody without the law being in effect, and it was his opinion that the answer was no. And he did say the sooner you enact something, the better. And I asked him. I said, shouldn't there be a general law? Should we not open it up to all aldermen if we're doing it for one? And he said, no, actually, and he surprised me with that. He said it should be designed specifically for the situation, which I found interesting. I never can predict what a lawyer's going to say. But anyway, my question, I do have one question, is the fact that since the council would not be prepared to act on this tonight and get it all in place, what does that do to Alderman Timmons? Can she participate in votes and discussions on things going forward until that's done?
The order of priority is that Alderman Timmons is an alderman first and foremost, and someone who does business with the city secondly, as far as the rights and the law is sort of worded. There is no mechanism to sort of reverse what's happened. So we're at where we're at, and then it's sort of looking forward on how to move forward. I bet you didn't predict me saying that, but could you rephrase your question in a way that I can?
Can Alderman Timmons vote on things in the interim here?
Yes.
Can she legally do it?
Yeah, she is absolutely 100% legally an alderman with the same authority as every other alderman on the council.
And are we breaking the law by doing so?
We are not in compliance with regards to the contract with Team Summit for Park on the River.
I don't understand the answer, but that I'll let somebody else go.
I guess what I'm saying is what is not legally challenged is Alderman Timmons voting on things going forward. That's valid. What might not be valid is the agreement with Team Summit for the lease of Park on the River.
I see what you're saying. Thank you.
One takes precedent.
Thank you, Alderman Mosey. Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I guess the elephant in the room is: do we have to suspend business with Team Summit until that we can get a proper quorum to handle this one way or the other, or can we still kind of continue on with the current agreement until we get the proper quorum, or do we have to do an emergency?
It would be my recommendation that one more person be here tonight so that we could waive the readings and enact it.
But here's and I'm regardless of anything else out there, you've got reservations made for weddings. You start messing with somebody's weddings, then you know.
Well, I don't want to suspend.
Yeah. So
I just want to know if we have to.
I mean, you know, we could not accept any more money from her or whatever, and not make her pay any more lease or something like that. But that's kind of like cutting off your nose, you know. I mean, so I mean that's the question. If we suspend business with her, basically we quit accepting revenue or funds to compensate the city. So I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to say whether that's legal or not, but it doesn't make a lot of common sense to me. But so that's my deal. And I definitely don't want to say, okay, she can't operate Park on the River anymore, and this wedding that's happening Friday night is now canceled.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And that was my work, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't suggesting that we suspend business. Absolutely not. I'm just worried that our hands were forced because we're in this unfortunate situation of lack of a quorum. So we're just kind of in a gray area, basically.
I think that's accurate.
I know lawyers love to say that.
I think that's accurate. The city is in a contract right now also.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And we have the luxury that we meet every 2 weeks, basically, first and third Mondays. There's a lot of councils that don't meet but once a month. So, I mean, if they did something very similar, they appointed somebody at this meeting and then they took the ordinance up at the next meeting, they would go 30 days on minimum, or up to 30 days, I guess is what they could go. But just my thoughts. But I mean, hopefully in 2 weeks we will have 2 more members here, and hopefully we'll have a full quorum at that time. But Alderman Holt.
Well, having gone around and around, my apologies to Alderman Timmons for what is embarrassing to me, and I'm sure to her to some extent as well. But procedurally, going around and around, again, we'll come back to this at the next meeting, so I won't linger it, but knowing in advance that indeed, as I did ask questions that night, that she has a contract in it with the city of Maumelle, and we knew that, and gladly we voted to elect her. So the ordinance is, again, as Alderman Lewis has said, after the fact, and so this is so that she can proceed at a point in time that we can vote, and then she can proceed. But in the meantime, is there a part of her duties that are just not there until we do consummate this?
Are you referring to her alderman duties? What?
Yes.
No. She is an alderman with the full privileges that all the other aldermen share.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Holt. Alderman Lewis.
2 things I'd like to get sent over in the way of information if possible. One would be the previous ordinances with the 2 aforementioned city officials. Get an email copy of that, I would appreciate it. And secondly, I understand that based on what Alderman Mosley indicated today in his conversation with Mr. Hayes, and what you confirmed as well, that the current process encourages that the specific contract and person be mentioned. I would like another example of that from another municipality or county governing body in the state of Arkansas, where it's been applied that same way. So that's what I'd like to have that's obtainable. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no additional discussion on Ordinance 909, it'll be on second reading at the next meeting. Okay, moving on to item D, which is memo regarding fences and Rolling Oak subdivision. I prepared a memo for the council that addressed an issue that we're encountering in the Rolling Oak subdivision, and then in addition to that memo, I also provided minutes from the July 2nd, 2012 meeting. I provided the memo that was sent to the council at that time, provided letters that were sent to individuals on June the 14th, 2012 that caused the memo and caused the discussion at the July 2nd meeting, and then sent a letter out, or gave you copies of a letter that was sent out December 29, 2004 that gave fences to the individual property owners. And then I also provided maps that show you kind of the issue that we're dealing with. And if you would look at either this colored map that you have in your package or had in your packets, if you will note, the blue line is where approximately the property line is. So that's where the approximate property line is, but the fences are away from that toward the roadways. And so as these fences become in disrepair and someone comes in and asks to replace their fence or rebuild their fence, we tell them, well, you got to move your fence back to where this blue line is. Now, it's not exact. It's as accurate as can be. But they're saying, no, I don't want to do that because that moves it too close to my house, or I have an accessory structure there that's been there for 30 years, or it may have been there only 6 years because they came in and got a building permit, and they said they were going to put their accessory structure 10 foot off their property line. But what they did is they put it 10 foot off of a fence, which is not the property line. And so that's the dilemma we're at. And so since 2012, we've actually gotten people to move their fence like 3 times. And so we're out of 30 plus lots here that are affected by it. And so I'm just asking for some guidance of the council. Do you want us to keep enforcing this? I mean, because every time we do it, they just say, well, I'm not going to fix my fence then. And so then that just leads to the disrepair on the fences and everything. And so I need some guidance on where y'all want us to go. And I included copies of the plats there. And then there's also, this was in the packet in 2012, but this was an area that we were really dealing with, which was along the boulevard. And so it's a yellow area. And that's the area where a few of the fences have been moved at, in that area right there. And you can drive down the boulevard. All right. Alderman Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a thought. If we offered, this is just a thought, so stick with me. If we offered to move the fence line back to the appropriate spot, because stating that we made the mistake of putting it in the wrong spot when we were doing the fences or whatever. If we offer to move those back to where they're supposed to be for a one-time shot, what kind of cost could we incur? I mean, I know you can't just pull this out of the top of your head, but would it be so significant that we wouldn't want to do that? I was just thinking if we had some way of incentivizing it for it to be uniform, instead of trying to piecemeal every time someone comes before us needing to build a new fence. If we made the good faith effort to correct a mistake, quote unquote, and then say from that point forward we're going to keep it where it's supposed to be, is that something that would be doable?
If you put it back with the big posts and all that, you're going to spend somewhere between $15 and $20 a foot. So a 100-foot wide lot would cost you $1,500 to $2,000.
Yeah, that's
per lot.
Prohibitive.
And what you'd also have to do prior to that, I think you'd have to get the lot surveyed to know exactly where the property line is. So you'd have a survey cost and the cost of the fence. I don't know exactly what it'd be. I hadn't taken quotes on that fence, but I do know that those big posts are a lot more expensive than the standard fence that you get that would cost you $12 to $15 a foot.
Yeah.
So I don't know the exact cost, but I would, before the city would take that on, I'd say you have to survey at least that property line through there. And then you're going to still run into the issue of you've got some accessory structures. Mm-hmm. Who moves the accessory structure? Well, and some of them are on concrete, and then you're going to have some that wind up very close to houses, to the rear door of the houses.
So if they've done an accessory, a building that was not to code, why are they still up? Because they were supposed to build it so far from the property line.
Well, and so
it's not to code.
Well, it's not to code if we go out there and say, yeah, your property line is here now. They assumed their property line was the fence line. But it's the same thing with these fences. All these fences are wrong. They're not to code either.
Right.
So
I'm just saying it seems like in other instances,
we've got
making the mistake of saying, well, I'm sorry, I assumed is not a legal.
But we've got accessory structures all over the city that are not properly done simply because sometimes they don't get permits either.
Okay. Well,
and if we go around and start tagging everybody, you might get upwards of 1,000 phone calls. So, yeah. So I mean, that's the
nature of the beast.
Well,
but
it's the real world. I mean, because it may have been done prior to we had those rules in place where we permitted accessory structures. Just like if you read the ordinance about the fences, it mentions that any fence can remain as it is if it was there prior to 2006, because that's when the ordinance was passed on the fence ordinance. But it says if it gets into a status of repair and it needs to be modified, then it says you have to bring it in compliance now with the new rules and everything. So it really wasn't an issue, I guess, until 2006, because it basically said these fences could stay there. So if you got a fence that the bad side faces out on a street, as long as it was there before 2006, it can remain that way until they go to replace it. Then it has to be put in properly, as per the new ordinance.
And does that same policy applies to the accessories?
No, it does not.
Structure.
It's strictly related to fence, but if they didn't permit the accessory structure, we don't know when it was put in.
And technically, if it's not a permitted structure, then it's not legally supposed to be there.
That's true.
Okay.
But there could be decks, there could be, all kinds of structures, and we typically don't just, make a habit of going in people's backyards. But yeah. Unless it's complaint-driven type deal.
Complaint-driven, such as not having a fence or decrepit fence.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It can go both directions.
It can. I understand that, but this is a big enough can of worms. Now you're opening up another can.
Oh, I understand. That's like I said. Just bear with me. I just wanted to get this in the discussion because there's both sides to the story. If it's possible for the city to have some skin in the game, then I would like to do that. But it's cost prohibitive for us to spend $15,000 or $1,500 for each property. But if there was some way that we could incentivize that, I think that would be more well received. Even if it's just we'll waive the fee for the permit or something that would help incentivize that.
Waiving the fee for the permit, it's a $10 permit.
I'm just talking out loud.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Alderman Mosley?
I've got a couple of questions here. One, why can't you just go ahead and deed over that land between their actual property line and the fence? Why would we need to maintain that as city property?
I think it's common space.
It's common property.
Okay, so it's not even city-owned.
Well, that's another question. I mean, we're listed as the owners of it, but it's common property. It belongs to everybody in that subdivision. It's technically who it belongs to.
There's no answer to this.
That's
There's no answer to this. I guarantee you. And my strong recommendation is you do whatever works best for the homeowner. Don't tell them to move something that was built in that area if they didn't know better. And it may have been built back. It may have been approved.
I don't think they built them. I think they were built by the developers of that area originally.
Well, then leave it alone.
Well, then we have an issue, and that's why I'm asking for direction. Is we have an ordinance that says you can't build a fence across a property line, out of your property line, basically. So if they build their connecting fence to it, they've taken a fence onto somebody else's property, no matter whose it is. So I mean that's why we're asking for direction.
Well, you know exactly what my
my
opinion is. You need to let them go ahead and build that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You need to waive it anywhere in the city. There's been a conflict.
Okay. Well, and you may get your wish, because if it does that, we may bring them all back to the council individually. So and let y'all waive it, unless you pass an ordinance waiving them. Like instead of saying.
Can we waive in one whole area?
Well, that may be. You may be able to do that. That might be the thing to do. And then
they shouldn't have to come to the planning commission and get waivers and stuff
like
that.
All right. Okay. All right. Alderman Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Almost don't know where to start. As Alderman of Ward 4, and those people are constituents of mine, I would very much want to be involved in any way I possibly can and have a chance to talk with them. I know that this is sounds like it's Meadow Ridge 101. I mean Garden Oaks 101 all over again. I tried to memorize the conversation that was had when everybody was trying to decide. I remember Alderman Snell had made a comment that, or someone had said, well, we hate to penalize people for something they didn't do, and Alderman said, well, it's not penalizing somebody to, hold up a certain property, but I remember that Alderman, my mind's blank, had said, well, I'd like to talk to John Wright because John Wright was the builder. And so I think that's good advice. I'd like to see what, if he built most of those homes and he put up the fences, or his crew did, or someone did, and we go back, if I remember correctly, it said that most of those homes were built prior to us being incorporated into the city. So there really was no city government, if I'm understanding correctly. So it's as was just the case with Oak Forest Drive right behind me, and thank you for that. Looks very well indeed, but that again was an issue where drainage and everything coming off of Vantage Point was leaking in or running into other people's homes. So I'm in favor, as Alderman Mosley had just said, try to find out a way to make it as easy as possible on those residents and not have them come up and having to spend money when it was not anything that they had any knowledge of when they bought those homes. I would very much like to, what information has gone out to those homes and what has been the reaction to this date?
Well, you saw what went out to them. I included them in the
Right,
packet.
okay, so that's
okay.
it. That's it. That's the letter then, right?
Yeah, there was 2 letters that went out to those residents.
Okay.
And the reaction in 2012 was, no, we're not going to do that, basically.
Right.
And Alderman Hogue got involved in it
Right.
and met with some of them in that area. And basically, like I say, we've been able to get about 2 or 3 to comply with that rule that you move it back to your property line.
Right. Well, I don't blame them. At any rate, anything that I can do to be, as their representative alderman, my heart goes out to them, and I'm prepared to spend whatever time is necessary to help find some kind of a solution, because I don't think it's fair for them to be holding the bog as a result of what someone else did earlier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Alderman Lewis?
I'll struggle through this one, but I'll try. In the case of these property lines, you mentioned earlier they'd be taking offense onto someone else's property. You made a statement to that effect. By someone else, we're talking about the common property, though. There's not an instance where there's one of these lines where it drifts over into neighbor upon neighbor.
I don't know if that's
without survey.
I don't think it is.
But okay. Yeah. And I mean, it's hard for me. You're a little bit better at this with your surveyor history, Mayor. On the eyeball test, I mean, it varies from some of the lots, but we're talking about an average of maybe 8 feet.
Well, I think along the boulevard it's closer to 25 feet.
It does look bigger over there, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think the difference was, I think there they put the fences pretty accurately on the right-of-way. Where I could check it along Odom, it's, instead of being 60 foot, it may be 65, it may be 70 feet from the center line, and that's just scaling it on an aerial map. And so it may be closer to 10 to 15 feet along Odom.
What was I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Well, and then as you get toward Oak Ridge up here, it actually goes back to the correct place, so it's a triangle narrowing up. So,
what's the catalyst for this? Why?
We have a resident that wants to put the fence back up
in the
correct in the current location. Yes. That's correct. And so we told them no. And so the fence is just laying on the ground currently in that area. So and she's going, I want to fix this fence, but y'all won't let me. So.
This is an instance where I think we really just tried to outthink this years ago and put a blanket over the whole thing. I'm inclined to agree with Alderman Mosley entirely. I think we offer them this exception and forbearance. if they need it in the way of an ordinance for us to, put that in or something, I'm comfortable going there. Yes, I mean, you've got a resident who wants to repair something over there, starting to take that property line and zigzag that back. I'm disappointed it's taken us this long to come to that conclusion, if anything.
Well, and I agree. And if you read in my memo, I actually changed my mind on this. I mean,
indeed, I saw that.
Yeah, so I mean, I admit when I thought the best thing to do was put it on their property line and have the common property accessible by everybody, but just in trying to deal with the situation, and when you start looking at it case by case, if you look at it holistically and say, yeah, we need to do that, but then when you start looking at this, this person may lose 20 foot of their backyard.
Looks different once you get there.
Yeah, it does. It does. And so that's, but I just need some direction because basically this resident is on hold being able to do anything because we said, and here was the question. It was, according to our ordinance right now, Mr. Morley could have denied the fence permit that she needed. Then she would have gone to an appeal process through the planning commission that then comes to the council. She didn't want to do that, but then she came back the other day and said, I want to build my fence again. Yeah. So that's where we're at on this.
Okay. So thank you.
Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And after listening to the discussion, I think that's definitely the best way to go is to just do a variance. The thing that gives me pause, though, is that there are some residents that have complied with our order.
I agree.
So what do we do for those individuals?
What I would recommend there is they can move it back to just like everybody else if they so choose to do that. Now, if there's an ordinance that's changed or whatever. So one of those fences was just taken down, not recently, but I mean it was taken down. It wasn't put back up.
Okay.
Because they didn't want to put it back up there, so they just left the fence down. I think there's 2 other instances where the fence was taken down and put back up. One of them has always been there in the correct location. I don't know how that happened. But, that's the weird spot. Is
surveyor moved in there?
Yeah, someone said, "Hey,
probably a good fence builder.
Your property line is here," and so they put it right there. So I think there's 2 that have been moved, and I think there's 1 where the fence has been taken down. And all of these are along the boulevard.
The thing is that I don't want our inadequacies to cause harm, just like Steve was saying, to the homeowner. And so that would be my next pause. But I think we've all pretty much figured out that this is going to be the better way to go.
From what I'm hearing tonight is let's basically let them leave the fences where they are, is what I'm hearing tonight. So what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to modify the fence ordinance, which is in Article 14. I don't think
you give a variance for.
Well, it's not a variance. It's not it's not a variance. So I think we need to work on the ordinance. I think is what we need to do.
But can't you specify a certain subdivision with an exception within the ordinance?
Right. That's what I want to do. Yes, right. That's what I think we do.
Feel a little better now.
No. Yeah. We're going to modify the ordinance so that it addresses this situation, and it may say any fence constructed prior to this date in this area can remain in its current location or something. I don't know where we're going to go with that.
And I think that's a very sensible possibility because, that's the thing. We've always tried to, I think, apply this homeostasis sort of opinion about Maumelle where everything is the same, but it wasn't. I mean, it was, and a lot of folks know it's like the wild, wild west at times, the way some things happened in other areas and some lines. And so, we have to accept those differences and deal with them on a case-by-case basis.
Well, and directly north of this area, along Odom, the fences are on the property lines. They step back. So, I mean, somebody either figured out, hey, we put these fences in the wrong place, or the next guy put them where they were supposed to without knowing the other guy did it wrong. But everywhere else, I think the fences are basically where they're supposed to be, that I'm aware of. I don't know of another specific incident. Now, I know come Monday they're going to show up now, but I don't know of another area like that.
One developer got a little more creative with their marketing on their lot size.
Yeah. Your lot is this big, but you get one this big.
Right.
You're going to pay for it this big. Yeah. All right. We will work on an ordinance then for the next meeting. Is that all right, Mr. Norris?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Mayor's comments. Just wanted to let you know Alderman Kelly had requested that CAW and North Rock Wastewater be at the August 1st meeting. I made contact with personnel from both of those agencies, and they will be here on August 1st. I will send them a reminder just to make sure. They had dealt with some of the issues. I didn't ever get all the information that I was wanting from them, so I don't really have a lot other than they went out at within that week that it was brought up and fixed the repair that Alderman Kelly and Alderman Anderson were being affected by over in on Ophelia. They made that repair within.
So they found the leak.
Yes, they knew where the leak was. I think it was just one of those things that they were hunting it for a while, but then I think they found it. It just took them a little while to fix it. Yeah, yeah. And question on that, Alderman Mosley?
Well, just a quick comment. Right. I'd gotten a call from one of my constituents just out of the blue. I've never met her or anything, and she called up to say, I just wanted to say that you guys have done a good thing by bringing CAW in here, and she said that they had come in and worked with her very carefully and closely to resolve, and I didn't really understand what she was telling me, but it had something to do with a leak or something in her front yard, and she said they've gone way out of their way, and I said, please email the rest of the council, and
so we can hear the good thing.
You know, we need to hear something good.
That was on Canadian Cove, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And she sent an email to CAW,
and
they forwarded it to me. I guess I could have. I'll include that next meeting or whatever. But yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah. But I think she sent it to CAW, so they forwarded it to me. But yeah, it was a leak that'd been there for a while, I think, in her front yard, as I understood the email. So.
Yeah, she said they did it, and she'd had trouble for years, and it's all fixed now or whatever it is. So, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Lewis.
One of the things when they do send a representative, and you said North Little Rock Wastewater as well, but in particular, both. If they could speak to the number of service tickets that are outstanding right now on that front as well. I know that they're going to be prepared to talk a lot of billing questions, meter questions, that sort of thing, but I have gotten word from a couple different areas where there's some pretty lengthy wait times on some services that are needed. And I'd like to hear it from them.
Okay. All right.
On that.
I appreciate you letting me know that.
Yes,
I haven't heard. I know there's been some issues, but not a lot. So yeah, yeah, appreciate that. All right. The other thing that I wanted to make you aware of, and this notice that was at your table, this was passed out to the residents of Garden Oaks alleys on Friday. Ms. Dunn and Mr. Stowe went out and physically placed these on the front door of everybody's house at Garden Oaks. We'd been working with the contractors trying to get a phasing plan and a schedule put together, and they didn't get it all ready until Friday morning, but they're going to start the project Wednesday, this Wednesday, July the 20th. So, and then this schedule could move. This is probably worst case scenario schedule. They need to get in there and do some and see how it's going to go and all that. And basically, if you read the note, it talks about we're requiring 21 days for each area. 7 days of that is just the concrete to cure to allow a vehicle to drive on it, basically. It doesn't start getting most of its strength till after it's cured for at least 7 days. So, and they were thinking, well, a car wouldn't hurt it, but then what if that weekend the resident wants to load a pickup truck down with sod and drive up through there?
Let's not do that again.
Yeah, so we don't want to be repairing these alleyways immediately, and so we want to try to keep them closed for at least 7 days. So it looks a little worse than maybe it's going to be ultimately, but that's what it is. And they've actually got a meeting out there in the morning to deal with some issues. We've been contacted by some residents about, can I keep this that I put in there and all this? And so we're going to look at some things there, and we're trying to work with the residents to make sure we don't impact them any more than necessary. So
who created this graph?
Well, it's a combination, but Shawkat Ali, who works for ETC, created the graph, and then Ms. Dunn's suggestion, I color-coded it to match the phasing plan on the back. So
good suggestion, and nicely done on their part.
Yeah, so they created the Excel file, and I tweaked it just slightly. I put grids where you could follow them down and some things like that you couldn't see them when we first printed it. So, but Mr. Ali did most of the work, the hard work on it, and he did the map on the other side also.
So it's all going to be done by Thanksgiving, right?
Weather permitting.
Exactly.
Weather permitting. Okay, Planning Commission report, and that will be at the next meeting. Alderman's comments. Okay, Mr. City Attorney?
No, sir.
Mr. City Clerk?
No, sir.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Meeting is adjourned.
clock up, Mike, if I
Yeah,
run?
yeah.